comfortable.
Michael.
Hi.
Hi, Michael.
Hi there.
Hi there. How old are you, Michael?
I'm 27.
What is this air of despondency to your voice?
I'm nervous talking in front of nationwide television.
You're just talking to me.
Okay.
I'm on nationwide television.
Okay.
You're at home.
Right.
All right, citywide. Well, the city is the nation.
Uh-huh.
What's the problem?
Well, I have a secret that I can't talk to anybody about.
What's that?
I've been a cross-dresser for probably 10 years.
Okay. And what's the problem?
The problem is that I'm afraid that it's obsessive and very compulsive.
All right, so you have an obsessional need to cross-dress. If you do, then you need to understand a couple of things. When do you feel the compulsion? What triggers it? What is happening in your life that makes you want to dress up as a woman?
Well, I don't date. I've only had 2 relationships with a woman.
Okay. You say it's been 10 years.
Yeah.
And what happened 10 years ago?
Well, when I was in high school, I never really dated. I never went out and socialized. And I was always very attracted to women, but I felt too shy and introvert to approach them.
And so?
But I was very turned on by them and excited by the way that they dressed, especially the ones that dressed more sensual and scandalous. And so I started dressing in tight clothing.
So you, in other words, were motivated by your loneliness.
Exactly, yeah.
So you're just a lonely guy.
Right.
So your secret is not that you're a cross-dresser. The secret is that you don't feel worthy of a woman's love and you're lonely.
Yes, but it's turned into a point where I've gotten so much pleasure out of it, and I've experimented with such a point that I like to pretend that my anus is a vagina, and I get a lot of pleasure out of pretending that I'm a woman.
And have you stopped dating?
Yeah, well, the last relationship I had ended about 6 months ago.
And did your obsession interfere with your with the intimacy in the relationship?
Sort of.
How?
I let my girlfriend know that I did this, and
That did it, huh?
not totally. No, it gradually took about 6 months later.
That did it, huh?
I think that was probably part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. If
My
you
my biggest fear is that I won't be able to find a woman that will accept this part of me, and that I won't be able to control this.
Well, when you were with this woman, were you having gratifying sex?
Yes and no.
What is an and no?
I was having gratified love with her. I loved her, and when I had made love with her, it was good, but I had an obsession for certain fetishes that was not gratifying with her because she was much more reserved than I would have liked her.
Fetishes?
Yeah.
What are you into? Clean it up for the air, though.
High heels and tight jeans.
High heels and tight jeans.
Yeah. And heavy makeup.
On her part or yours?
Both, actually. I mean, I like to see a woman dressed like that sometimes, and as a result of that, I get pleasure dressing like that myself.
You dress like a slut.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it comes down to.
That's typical of people who don't feel good about themselves as a person, and the comfort they have around people who dress slutty is they feel that the person, the sex object, is so beneath them that they don't feel that they feel worthy of him. And if a sex object is has a face that could be on the cover of 17 magazine, wearing tennis clothes and a tennis sweater, and it's just adorable, it couldn't excite you.
I didn't totally follow that.
If you met someone who was just, a Margot Hemingway type, very clean cut, doesn't excite you.
No, not as much.
Not as much. Almost not at all if they're really clean cut.
Right. I like it more erotic and more sensual.
Right, because you like to feel that your involvement doesn't lower your self-esteem by comparison to someone who's noble.
I don't know what that means, really.
Noble.
Yeah, I know what noble means.
A gracious partner makes you feel bad about yourself because you don't feel good enough.
No, that's not true. I'm just very turned on by erotic clothing.
Because it gives you permission. It gives you permission to act slutty.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything's wrong with it. I'm just saying what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not making a judgment.
Yeah, I get pleasure out of acting slutty.
But the problem is that the pleasure you've gotten, which is a substitute for being alone, has now eclipsed your ability to form a lasting relationship with a woman and give you the kind of lasting pleasure that makes you feel good about yourself as a person.
Right, and it also bothers me when I go out on the street because especially nowadays, women are dressing very sensual and very erotic.
Wait. You just skipped a beat. I'm saying you're a lonely guy even more so, but you're using the eroticism to block your feelings of loneliness.
Right, it's a substitute.
Right, well, it's now a block.
A block.
Yeah, because what you really are using it for is as an addiction.
It is an addiction, I know that.
To keep from feeling lonely.
Yes.
Okay, so the problem is your loneliness and your lack of your feeling is a lack of desirability.
Right, because when I was in the relationship and I felt and everything was adequate in the relationship, I did not have the desire to do that.
No kidding. You just proved the point because that was the question I was thinking of asking. All right. Love will heal you, but not high heels.
But I've heard and I've read many different places that once a cross-dresser, always a cross-dresser.
My friend, you've already wait a second. You've already demonstrated that when love is present and you feel accepted, the urge decreases. That's the most helpful sign. And you need help across this barrier. Let me tell you something. Don't waver. Get the help. Because it is your loneliness and the fact that you don't feel good about yourself that is treatable. And if you cross over into this area where you're using the dressing up as a substitute, eventually the pleasure will seem even greater and will be false because it won't really be pleasure. It will also have the effect of stopping the anxiety of feeling rejectable. That's what this is about. I know that's a little complicated.
Yeah, it is.
But the fact, let me make it clear because I don't want to double talk you. Cross-dressing and any perversion because it's a substitute. That's what a perversion is, something that substitutes for something else. Becomes so pleasurable because it is pleasurable, and two, because it blocks pain. So when you stop the pleasure, it's not as if you're just free of the pleasure. You now have to contend with the pain. And the only reason you could give it up was because you had love there, because the pain that the pleasure is covering is the plane of loneliness. One, let's try some therapy. And two, the next relationship, you need to be really open about recovering from this problem because it's an addiction to being a cross-dresser. There are addictions to anything. And basically an addiction is when you use something, anything, alcohol, drugs, gambling, peculiar behavior, addiction to sex, anything you use becomes a buffer that you take to protect you from some internal pain. But as long as the internal pain is there, the drive to the addiction continues. You cannot just stop the addiction. You have to repair your heart. We'll be right back.